This is Gemara Yoma Daf Lamid. Hey, the Daf for Erev Shavuos, Erev Matan Torah. All the learning for this month, the month of Sivan, has been generously sponsored as a special Schos Shidduch for Yisrael Chaim ben Devaira. Mirz Hashem, we should hear good news. Ziva Ghaga in Bekaraiv. Of course, all the Chayim man Bevega Chaim and Sarsham Sivan Reizos Arbas Kinandel Yibasim Chayzer Yisrael Memindel the President Shavalesham Vasnami Shavega Shevchana Shmo Ben Tila Dim Chan Rizim Chay Bezil the Bracha Bastuva Musa Adinayda which in Mindasi Mefega Mechles and the Seluva Mechamand Ben Toba Besay we pick it off at the top of Lamed Hey, Mirz Hashem. The staff will be posted before Shabbos, so anyone who would like to get a bit of a head start, so that after Shabbos and before Yantif, Mirz Hashem, we're going to try to post the daf for Monday and Tuesday, so everyone could try to get a head start, and maybe over Shavuos to do a Chazara. What a wonderful thing that would be. Let's begin, says the Gemara, my Parva. What is the Parva? As we saw in the Mishnah that they brought the Kohen Gadol, we're up to Tefillah number 2, the second of the 5 dips. He went to the place called Beis HaParva. Says the Gemara, what is the Beis HaParva? Says the Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yosef, Parva Amgusha. Parva was the name of a certain sorcerer, and he's the one that built that chamber. He's the one that built that room. As you see Rashi in front of you, Rashi says, Michshav Echad Bano Shemai Parva. That was his name. Says the Gemara Bar Sasan Shalputz. They held up that linen sheet so that when the Kohen Gadol went into the mikveh, no one who saw him. Says the Gemara, Maishna Shal Butz. What's the reason that the sheet was made out of butz, that it was made out of linen? We've seen this before. So everyone should remember and recognize that today is, the Kohen Gadol should realize and remember, today is the day of butz, of linen, of white garments. Then the Mishnah continued, perhaps a bit of an interesting discussion. What was the value of the garments? And let's just point out, the first common denominator was the first set of white garments were worth more than the second set. We had 2 shitas in the Mishnah, either went from 12 mana to 8 mana, or it went from 18 mana to 12 mana, and we already pointed out a mana is 100 zuz, so either was 1200 zuz to 800 zuz, or 1800 zuz to 1200 zuz. Says the Gemara, Vitana minyana asal hashminan. And let's remember, that in the second opinion in the Mishnah, that when it went to 18 to 12, the Mishnah said, and together it's worth 30 mana. Shkayach, what, you doing math for me? Says the Gemara, is the Mishnah just doing math that teaching me that 12 and 18 is 30? Answers the Gemara, fascinating teretz. It's not going to be worth less than 30 mana. It's teaching us a tremendous chiddush. We would have thought it says 18 and then 12. It says 12 and then 8. So we would have thought those are the numbers. Says the Mishnah, no, the total is 30. If you get 30, that's fine. As long as the first one is more than the second one. If you were 20 and then 10, it equals 30. You are in good standing. Says the Gemara, the Kuli Alma, Mias, the Shachar, Adifa, like we just pointed out, everyone holds that the first set of linen garments, the ones that were worn early in the morning, either it's worth 18 or 12, but everyone agrees that those are worth more than the second set, which are worth 8 or 12. Manolan, where do we know that from? Says the Gemara, Amar Avihuna, Breid Rav Eloi, Amar Kra, it says in the Torah, bad. It says the word 4 times, which teaches us Muvuchar Shabbat. It must be the choicest of bad, as Rashi over here points out, that this is referring to the big day Shachris. So referring to the vestments that are worn in the morning, those have to be the choicest, those have to be worth more than those are of the afternoon. Turning over to Lamed Hey Amud Beis, says the Gemara, Meisvei, asked the Gemara, then what does it say? It says that they put on other garments, and the pasuk continues, as big day, and they did not mekadesh the people with their garments. This is a pasuk in Yechezkel. Referring to the Yom Kippur Avodah, says the Gemara, what's going on over here? My lava achirim chashuvim mehem. It sounds like, what does the word achira mean? The other ones were different. They're more Chashiv, they're better. And this is referring to the second avodah. So we just said a moment ago that the morning one, bad, has to be worth the best. But from the Psukim of Yechezkel, it sounds the opposite. It sounds like the second one should be worth more. And says Gemara, no. Loi achirim pechusim. You know what achirim? Achirim just means different, other ones, but it can refer to those that are of a lower quality. And now it fits what we said that the morning is worth more. Tani Rav Huna bar Yehuda says Rav Huna the name the son of Rav Yehuda. V'amri la Rav Shmuel bar Yehuda. Achar shekolsa avoida sibur. Once it was finished, the avodah of the tzibur, kayin she'alsa lo'imak saines, which we've seen, that the mother of the Kohen Gadol would sometimes make them clothing. So says the Gemara another din. We've learned before, if you remember about the mitznefes, we wanted to bring a raya that during the payis, during the lottery, it says you take off his hat. Seemingly it's a raya. We said back then that the Kohanim wore their big dick kahuna during the lottery. We answered that no, it's no raya. Why not? Because maybe he just wearing the clothing that his mother made him, which represented and was a replica of the real clothing, but it wasn't really big day Kodesh. Now we see another application of what the mother of the Kohen Gadol made for him. Says the Gemara, after he finished the avoid of the tzibur on Yom Kippur, he's allowed to put on the clothing that his mother wore for him. He puts it on and he does the avoid of the yachid. We'll explain what that is in a moment. So two dinim we just learned. Din number one is during the avodah of the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, he's allowed to be wearing clothing made from his mother. For what? Avodas Yachid. What's Avodas Yachid? So let's see Rashi. Rashi says, Haitzas kafu machta. The removal of that shovel and the ketores. She'enai shrichel etzibar al lafishim utalos lav lefanais is hamakayim. He has to clean out the place. It's not appropriate. It's not coveting to leave the shovel and ketores inside the Kodesh HaKodashim. That's why it's called Avodas Yachid, and he's allowed to put on the clothing made by his mother, but bilvad, that he gives it over to the tzibur, meaning he has to say that this is not mine, this belongs to the Beis HaMikdash. But what's fascinating is true, he has to give it to the Beis HaMikdash, but it comes out that he's going to go into Lefnai V'Lefnim. He's going into the Kodesh HaKodashim. It's true, he's just going for a removal to take out the ashes, but he's wearing the clothing made by his mother for that special avodah. It's an avodas yachid. It's a lower level, but that is the din. Says the Gemara Pshita, that's obvious. Meaning, it's obvious it only works if he gives it over to the Beis HaMikdash, because it has to belong to the Hektish. Answers the Gemara, I would have thought, maybe the Kohen Gadol's going to say, yeah, it belongs to Hektish, but he's not going to really give it away with a full heart. Kamash B'lan, so the Chiddush is that no, if he's makdish it, if he gives it over to Hektish, it's a good and valid transfer, and he's allowed to then wear it for the avodas yachid. Amru, says the Gemara, Amru Lav Rav Yishmael ben Pabi. They said about Rishon ben Pabi, Shasla, he was a Kohen Gadol, Shasla Yimak Senis Shal Meya Mana. His mother made him a shirt worth 100 mana of a live shav, Ovid Bavodas Yachid, and he wore it for an avodah of the singular avodah to remove the shovel and the ketayris, the spoon. Umasel the tzibur, and he gave it over to the tzibur. Amru Alav Al Rav Elazar ben Charsam. And now we see another story. They say about Elazar ben Charsam, Shasla Yimak Senis Mishtei Riboy, that they made his mother made for him a shirt that was worth 20,000. Mishtei riboy always means 1,000, 20,000. Manav loy nichua. And his brothers, the other Kehanim, didn't let him wear it. This very, very expensive shirt made by his mother, they didn't let him wear. Why? Says the Gemara, because it appeared like he was undressed. Fascinating. He's wearing a shirt. He's wearing this long tunic. How did it appear like he was undressed? Says the Gemara. What do you mean? Umim chazi? Is it true? He's wearing a shirt. It was see-through? How is that possible? V'amar Barba, we learned chutin kafel shisha. There have to be 6-fold threads. So if it's such a thick weave, says the Gemara, how is it possible you see through? I'm wearing a jacket. It's a weave. You can't see through it. Says the Gemara, how can you see through a 6-fold weave of the clothing of the Kohen Gadol? Amar Abaye, a fascinating daret. Chamra b'mazga. It's like a thick glass cup. Glass can be very thick, but it's see-through. Says the Gemara, this weave was such fine material that at some level it was a see-through thread, whatever that means, and therefore, even though it was very thick, you still were able to see through, and they felt it was not sneeze, it was not appropriate for the Kohen Gadol to be walking around in clothing that was at some level see-through, and even though it was worth 20,000 mana, they did not allow him to wear it on Yom Kippur. Says the Gemara, once we're on the topic of wealth, Tanu Rabbanan. We're about to have some very, very famous Gemaras, which will be a beautiful hakdam and a beautiful preparation for Shavuos. Ani va'ashir v'rasha. 3 categories of people. Ba'in ladin. When they come upstairs, lachar me'av esrim, they come up to God after 120 years. La'ani amrim lo, what do they tell the poor person? Why didn't you learn Torah? If he says, I was poor, what do you want from me? I had to make a living. What is the heavenly court? What do they tell him? Were you poorer than Hillel? Now we get to hear the famous story of Hillel Hazakin. We'll always remember Yoma. Maybe we won't remember Daf Yomi, but we'll remember learning this on Erev Shavuos about the tremendous Mesiras Nefesh of Hillel Hazakin. That what did he do? He would make one tarpik, a measly little sum. This was back in the time that there was a Shaimer, a guard. The whole fight, Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel, whether there should be a guard by the door, and there was, and each day he paid the guard half of his wages. And the other half, the tarpik, he would use to support his family. One time, he didn't sell anything, he had no money. Couldn't go to shul, he couldn't go learn. What did he do? He said, I'm sorry, you can't pay, you can't come in. Allah, what did Allah Hazakin do? He went up and he hung himself and he lied down on top of the skylight. He wanted to hear the shir, he wanted to hear Daf Yomi. The word of the living God. Says the Gemara from his Rabbeim, Shemai and Avtalion, Amru Isa Hayim. They said, what was that day? That day was Erev Shabbos. It was Erev Shabbos. Utkuvas Tevis, I said it was the middle of the winter. V'yarad alav sheleg min shamayim, and it started snowing again. Hillel, probably not wearing such thick clothing if he's such an ani. He's lying on top of the skylight. Why? So he could look down, he could see Shemai and Italian teaching Torah, and at some level he could try to absorb and listen and learn. Kshalam Shachar, morning comes, he's lying there the whole night. The morning comes, Amrullah Shemai Avtalion. Shemai tells Avtalion, Avtalion, my brother. Every day when it gets morning, we see the light through the sunlight. It's dark. It's a cloudy day. They raised up their eyes. They looked up and they're like, wait, it's not cloudy. They see an image of a person on the skylight. I don't know if everyone knows that part of the story. There were 3 amois, about, 4.5, 5 feet of snow on top of Hillel Hazakin. From all those from New York, we understand what it means. 5 feet of snow, and he was buried underneath it. What do? They ran up, parkua. They pulled him out. They washed him off his sichua, and they anointed him. They put him next to the fire to thaw him. Amru, and they said, this one is right. Shabbos. Big discussion. What do you mean, every Jew is right to Machal Shabbos if he's dying. So perhaps Shabbos wasn't really a sakana. And they're just bringing out the point. But either way, that is number one. When someone's poor and he comes up and he says, I couldn't learn, I'm poor. They say in Hillel, he's on top of the skylight, 5 feet of snow, 3 amos of snow, and he still was in there trying to learn. Very tremendous chizik as we go into Man Torah. And of course, for all of us learning Daf Yomi, Baruch Hashem, at least we make sure to learn something, and let's take something else. Do maybe a bit of a chazara. Ashir Aymer, they said to the Ashir, we're 6 lines into the white lines. Why didn't you learn? I'm or Ashir, if he says I was very Ashir and I was busy with my business. What do you want from me, God? I was a wealthy man. There's nothing I could do. Were you wealthier than Rav Elazar and Charisim, which of course is the reason we brought down this whole story? Says the Gemara, how wealthy was Rav ben Charsim? Rav ben Charsim nidlo aviv elif ayarais v'yabasha. You know what his father left him in the inheritance? 1,000 ships at sea. I'm sorry, 1,000. One more time. 1,000 cities on dry land. Ukinegdam eluf sinas bayam. And then he had 1,000 ships at sea for each one of them. I don't know, what's that, 100,000? And what would he do? All this money, all these cities and boats, he took a bag of flour, al-ksefai on his shoulder, representing him in kamach, in Torah, if there's no flour. You can't learn. Why? Lilmai Torah. He was wealthy. Cities, boats, fabulously wealthy. What was he doing? Walking around trying to learn Torah. His own servants bumped into him, which over here they're medayik, that his own servants, as you're about to see, did not recognize who he was. And they pressed him into, they say, hey, you have to come work for the king. His own servants. They didn't realize that they're talking to the boss. Leave me. I gotta go learn. They said, we're not going to leave you. So he bribed them, he got out, and he was sitting and learning all day and night. Let's just see the Rashi that we just spoke out. And Agra says, Rashi, va'avoidas atzmo yaisa. Vehem einan makirim by. They didn't recognize him. So we see he was so fabulously wealthy, and yet his own workers didn't recognize him because he was just sitting and learning all day. That's the Anir, that's the Ashir. What's next? The Rasha. Why didn't you learn Torah? I'm a beautiful guy. My Yitzhahara got the better of me. What do you want? All the nisyanis, all the terrible things pulling at me. They say to him, are you more beautiful than Yosef HaTzadik? They said about Yosef HaTzadik, she would try to grab him with words. Then she would change her clothing, what she wore in the morning. She wouldn't wear it in the afternoon. Each day, a new set of clothing, a new makeup, a new way trying to entice Yosef HaTzadik. She said to him, hey Shamali, listen to me. Amar Lai says, laugh. No. Amrullah, she says, I'm going to throw you in jail, little Joe. Yosef, you better listen to me. Come, I want to do an Avera. I'm throwing you in jail. Amarullah, what did Yosef HaTzadik answered? Hashem matir. You're going to throw me in jail? God gets me out of jail. I'm going to bend you over. Yosef answered, Hashem Zaykib Kavuvim. I'm going to blind your eyes. I'm going to stab your eyes. Says Yosef, I'm not scared of you. Hashem open up my eyes. Nosli elef kikari kesev lishmaya. She gave him 1,000 kikar bars of silver to listen to her. Lishakiv etzla to lie with her. Li'aisima to be with her. V'lai rata Yosef HaTzadik stood up to the test. Lishmaya elel lishakiv elel etzla b'aylam hazeh. Li'aisima l'aylam haba. You want me to lie with you in this world and be with you in your dreadful place in the next world? Nothing is doing. And concludes the Gemara the famous words: Nimsa Hillel mechayiv aniyim. Hillel, the 5 feet of snow, the 3 hours of snow, trying to learn on the skylight. He's mechayiv the poor people. Rulaz ben Charsim, 1,000 cities, 1,000 boats for each city. Mechayiv is hashirim. And Yosef, Ish by Tifar, changing clothing, paying, and trying to do everything in her power. Mechayiv is Harshayim. And as we walk into Matan Torah, we could all take a chizik. Hopefully, we're not the Ani, the Ashir, or this Rasha, but everyone at their level could try to do something in order to get a little more Torah. We're going to pick it up from the Mishnah Mir Hashem in the next year.